Okay. So, good evening. I welcome you all to this web conference. We titled it 32nd Year of Genocide and Exile, No Sign of Reversal, Akhir Kab Tak. So, I'm Sunil Vatal, and I would be the host today. Will be jointly moderating this. With me will be Sanjay Sapru, who is there on the call. So, Sanjay and I will be jointly moderating this session. And uh, just a brief introduction. Today's topic is pertinent as we complete 32 years of our exile. It's been 3 decades where we have seen a lot of ups and downs, a lot of debates and discussions, but we're still aspiring for a healing touch to our wounds. We all know the miseries we've suffered, and we've discussed this in detail. So I guess it is now time that we start looking forward and conceive a path for mitigating the wrongs done to our community. Given the recent developments in J&K over the past couple of years, it makes sense to start visualizing right now for a roadmap for the future of our next generation. Very clear, we're not here to post-mortem our past sufferings. A lot of things have been said about that, but let us talk about the way forward. So we are actually looking at future steps. We want to look forward how we proceed. So we have a very experienced panel of speakers from our community here who shall enlighten us with their views on this subject. So with that, I'll just keep it brief, but I would just mention a few ground rules that all of us are expected to follow. Each listed speaker shall have 5 minutes, and I would request everyone to be brief so that all of us get a chance to speak. Interventions may be allowed by the chair. Questions, if any, can be typed in the chat box. These will be answered by the panelists towards the end of the session. So let's try to do minimum interruptions. I would request everyone to be on mute. Please unmute only if you are speaking. And finally, we are recording this session. A recording of this session would be put up subsequently, and we will be sharing the links with you. With that, I would invite the first speaker of the day. I would request Mr. Ashok Ban to take up and let's know his views and thoughts.
Thank you, Sunil. Namaskar, friends. As Sunil ji has rightly said that we should not post-mortem into the past happenings. We should look forward to a new way forward. I would request Sunil ji to put a short video of Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad in the background. It is just hardly a few seconds, and thereafter I will pick up the thread from there. Sunil, please play that.
Yes, I'll need a minute to share the screen.
फिर हमने कहा कश्मीरी पंडित जो है पिछले 30 साल से वो बाहर है, बहुत सारे
आवाज नहीं है,
कश्मीर में भी है कुछ, लेकिन अधिकतर बहुत बड़ी संख्या जो है वो बाहर। ये हमारी मौलिक ड्यूटी है, सरकार की तो बनती है।
सुनील, इट्स नॉट ऑडिबल।
हर एक राजनीतिक दल और नेता की ये मौलिक जिम्मेदारी है।
Is it audible now?
No, please start it again. It is not.
वो बाहर, ये हमारी मौलिक ड्यूटी है, सरकार की तो बनती है, लेकिन जम्मू कश्मीर।
So is it audible now?
No, I don't.
It is very feeble, yaar. It's very feeble. It's very difficult to understand.
Okay, then let's just skip this. I'll request Ban Saab to go forward and proceed.
Just one moment. May
Yeah,
Khan Saab, just convey the message, I guess.
yeah.
Crucial meeting, the all-party meeting is over, and
वो तमाम चीजों के कहने के बाद हम लोगों ने ये बताया कि भाई इलेक्शन हो गए और मांग की कि आप कहते हैं कि लोकतंत्र को मजबूत करना है। अब आपने पंचायत के इलेक्शन किए, जिला परिषद के इलेक्शन किए, तो ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि विधानसभा न हो? इसलिए विधानसभा का इलेक्शन भी तुरंत करना चाहिए, डेमोक्रेसी को बहाल करना चाहिए। तीसरी चीज हमने बताई कि बहुत बड़े जमाने से हमारे डोमिसाइल, हिस्टोरिकली डोमिसाइल रूल्स थे। जमीन का तो हमारे महाराजा के जमाने से था, 1925 के जमाने से, बाद में नौकरी का भी था। केंद्रीय सरकार को ये गारंटी देनी चाहिए आएगी तो उसके साथ हमारे जमीन की गारंटी और जो लोकल IAS IPS वो तो आते रहेंगे, तो हर स्टेट में है, वहां भी आते रहेंगे, लेकिन जो एम्प्लॉयमेंट की अभी तक हमारे साथ एक सुविधा थी, उस सुविधा की गारंटी देनी चाहिए। फिर हमने कहा कश्मीरी पंडित जो है पिछले 30 साल से बाहर है, बहुत सारे जम्मू में भी है, कश्मीर में भी है कुछ, बहुत बड़ी संख्या जो है वो बाहर है। ये हमारी मौलिक ड्यूटी है, सरकार की तो बनती है, लेकिन जम्मू कश्मीर के हर एक राजनीतिक दल और नेता की ये मौलिक जिम्मेदारी है कि वो कश्मीर के पंडितों को वापस लाएं और उनके रिहेबिलिटेशन में जो भी हमसे हो सकेगी सरकार की सहायता करें, मदद करें कि वो कश्मीरी पंडित वापस कश्मीर में आ जाए। और पांचवा पॉइंट था,
So therefore, I'll stop here only. I think each one of us have heard it. And my point is that there is a lack of will by the present dispensation for facilitating the return, rehabilitation, and political empowerment of Kashmiri Pandits. I don't know the reason. We have tried to get deeper into it. But I wish to make one very emphatic point, that at least we as a minority in Kashmir, a religious Hindu minority, without which the entire spectrum of public opinion except the jihadis say that we are the aborigine of Kashmir, and without us, the Kashmir is incomplete. There is a broader consensus. There is a broader consensus within the political spectrum of the nation and also within the political spectrum of the mainstream polity of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. And to some extent, there is a positivity in those also who have so far chosen to be away from mainstream, those groupings. I would frankly say that there is a sizable section in Hurriyat which also says that Kashmiri Pandits have every right to come back. And what I want to convey is that there is a national consensus. There is a consensus within Jammu and Kashmir at the political, socio-political level, at the level of civil societies also in India and in Kashmir. So then what is the difficulty for this government to either engage with us on this issue or to plan our return and rehabilitation back to our home? So I wish to make very briefly 2 points on this. There is a perception with the policy makers of this country that Kashmiri Pandits are now well off wherever they are, and therefore they don't wish to go back. And on this point only, they advise the political masters and they advise themselves also that this issue doesn't deserve a priority. Fact is that in the past, there have been attempts. About 1,700 crores were earmarked for the Kashmiri Pandit package by the erstwhile regime of Manmohan Singh. And thereafter, after our persuasion, our friend Arun Jaitley as finance minister also earmarked 500 crores. That means in total 17 plus 5, 2,100 crores have already been earmarked and part of it has been spent also. So my point is that if previous regimes have thought of it, what is the problem with the current regime? This is now in power for last 8 years. And the Kashmiri Pandits have been ardent supporters of this regime and they continue to be the supporters of this regime. And this regime apparently profoundly promotes the politics of Hindutva in this country. So if a sizable section of 700,000 people belonging to Kashmir with the roots of 5,000 years is out because of a certain situation, because of a war inflicted on us, because of ethnic cleansing of us, and because of continuing killing on us, is it not, as Azad Saab said, that it is the legal, political, and moral obligation of the government of the day to plan a return, rehabilitation, and our dignity back to us? We may be doing our respective pursuits of livelihood in a karma bhumi, but our janma bhumi is our root, and roots will always haunt us, root will always call us, and it is calling. And I have been of this view that we have been talking to the younger generations, and younger generation is more longing than us to return back to their roots, to retrieve their roots at least. And there is a concept that roots will always call you. Like the Israelis and Palestinians, roots are calling, they are struggling. Do we need to change our pattern of our struggle? Because the basic teething period of our struggle for feeding our children, educating our children, that generation which was immediately affected by it, somehow they have, by their hard work, by their toil, they have reached a level of reasonable livelihood. And is it not the time at least to change the strategy, change the narrative, and strive for advocating more effectively with the present government than making films of our genocide or then getting to trivial issues of our struggle to a very important part of our struggle, which is our basic, fundamental, and human right. And that is right to decent life in our own roots, right to live, right to retrieve our roots. Circumstances may be any. I say that Kashmir continues to be part of India. And now this government, with its decision of 5th August of 2019, has done away with Article 370, which most of us had considered as a barrier for our return. Those barriers are out now. So if Jammu and Kashmir is bifurcated into two union territories, and Kashmir is part of a union territory along with Jammu, what is there not to return and rehabilitate? What is there for this government not to decide? And mind you, last point I wish to make is that this government is seized of the entire problem of Kashmir. That's why it has been taking time to time the informed decisions on it. And the most informed decision, according to them, was removal of Article 370. So if Kashmir is fully integrated with the mainstream India, where are we? What is our status? We don't ask for it. We only ask to highlight to the world opinion, which is already highlighted. We have been highlighting for last 32 years our genocide, and it is deeply registered all over the world. In the world forums, maybe a new repatriation effort is done. We welcome that. But that is not the ultimate of our struggle. So our struggle has to be and is for return, rehabilitation, and retrieval of our roots. And those roots are calling day in and day out to us. Circumstances and nitty-gritties we'll discuss once the government engages with us in a dialogue, in a talk with us on this issue. They are not picking up this issue from their archives. There is a lot of homework gone into this by the governments in the past, and maybe by this government also. And this government's representative has been always on board with the previous regimes on this issue. For example, Sushma Swaraj was heading a committee which has gone very deep into the realm of our problems and its solution. And that is also kept under wraps. So if Home Ministry just looks at their own record and formulate, say, 10 points of discussion with the representative of the community, I think this is the high time that we must highlight. And this government has benefited also out of our plight. They went all round, even in all the states, to use our plight for their garnering their support. We have no quarrel on that. But at least in return, they must at least show a gesture of owning us, owning the problem, and addressing the problem in its right perspective. So if there is a national consensus, if there is a local consensus, if the situation is turning and the dynamics of international relations is in favor, if the South Asian situation also is starting to be favoring us, what is there for this government not to favor us? Yesterday only I saw a report that Pakistan has issued a national policy saying that we'll have 100 years of peace with India. All right. The same Pakistan which was instrumental in throwing us out, if some sense has come to them, I don't speak on foreign policy. I don't say that Modi must pick up the thread, but at least there is an environment. At least there is a situation which can favorably be used towards us. And if they have some moral obligation, political obligation, they must fulfill it and act on this national consensus and the local consensus. Thank you very much. Sunil?
Thank you, Bansab. We'll just, in the interest of time, we'll just move over, and I would request Sazaul Saab to give us his thoughts about today's topic.
Thank you. I think Bansab spoke about 20 minutes, covered really a very broad spectrum of views and ideas, from geopolitics of the region to the wishes and desires of the government and the wishes and desires of the people. So I would appreciate if people don't repeat what he has already said, because he covered a very large ground. And it would be good if we do two things, which is A, say something new, say something that would add value, and two, say something that is specific in terms of the Kashmiri Pandit and Kashmiri Pandit matters. Let me tell you that there's a big difference between what we want and what we can achieve. And obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that's primarily because our sheer political numbers, our sheer political size, our sheer political weight doesn't exist. And as a result, quite frankly, we have to understand better where the government is coming from, especially if we are talking about a government like BJP, which we know is pro-Hindu, is essentially has also said it's pro-Kashmiri Pandits. So we have to really understand where they are coming from. And for that matter of fact, I would say Congress party equally did a great job. And again, there are tremendous commonalities between the approaches that the two parties did. And so you are set up against, essentially, it doesn't matter who runs the Delhi government, between Congress and BJP, your interaction and your impact of those parties on Kashmiri Pandit, I don't think is going to be grossly different. So let me give you an example. I'll go through a process of examination. When the new prime minister came on board from BJP on the 26th of May 2014, a lot of expectations were raised in Kashmiri Pandits. And in fact, they did materialize, because 3 months later, on September 6, 2014, when Home Minister Rajnath Singh was visiting the valley because on the flood situation, he let out that he had actually written a letter the previous day to Umar Abdullah, the chief minister, saying that he needs to set aside land for return rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits. And he said the 500 crores had been assigned in 2014-2015 budget. And of course, I'm not going to dwell on what happened after that, but we all know between Umar Abdullah and his successors, Mufti Muhammad Mufti Saeed and his daughter, they pretty much ensured with the help of the civil society, media, and everybody else in the valley, that such a plan will basically not be exercised, and the plan died a sort of a lame death up there. Now we come to we obviously at this time know that BJP meant well but couldn't do it. So then we have the situation where we have gone through August 5, 2019. Now we know that the boundary conditions have changed. The window, the flexibility of the window has advanced. And so I asked myself, why can they do it? Can they still do it? Can they actually create that land and do it? So I told myself, if I was the Supreme Commander and the Supreme Prime Minister and President of India, what would I do? Well, it turns out you have really three laws on the books in the UT or the state, and now in UT, which kind of impede your ability to do any such of things. The first one is the Jammu and Kashmir Development Act of 1970. The second one is actually, which was very tight, which was very specific, and then there was additional burden put on it by political level, where you had to get a no objection certificate specifically from the cabinet. Even after that, the land would have been, would have been used for something other than the normal use within the state. And then you had that was a little bit liberalized when they had the land acquisition, rehabilitation, resettlement of 2013. So you essentially have these three things between the 70 Act the 2013 Act and the no objection certificate of 1971 circular. So you would then start looking at chipping away these restrictions, and indeed that's what exactly the government did when they removed the no objection certificate in July 2020, when they basically withdrew the Jammu and Kashmir Development Act of 1970 in October of 2020, and finally when they amended the 2013 law so that you could have actually a possibility of giving the land away, and then indeed on December 31st in Jammu, the Department of Tourism gave away the land, declared the land for some other use. And what happened was, essentially, this was for the military. In the Baramulla district, 1,034 canals. In the Gandarbal district, near Sonamarg, 354 canals. So what I'm saying is, if there is a will, there is a way. Government actually did it legally, constitutionally. It will withstand the test of a court anywhere in India, including the Supreme Court. So you have to ask yourself, if they have that ability to do it, why are they not doing it? And quite frankly, for that, you have to go back to the Manmohan Singh government. You have to understand what happened there. Manmohan Singh government really personally was concerned about Kashmiri Pandits. I have met him twice, and I know that. He personally was involved in that. He sets up, after he came to power, he sets up an inter-ministerial committee, only one who did it. Hadn't been done till then, hasn't even been done since. And this was done at that time in the Planning Commission. Sushma Chaudhary IAS was put in charge of it from the Planning Commission. And unfortunately, that's when things got complicated, because the Prime Minister comes to Jammu in November 2004. He asks people, I'm going to have a committee come in, talk to them, tell them what you want, because that's what will be the basis of your thing. As usual, Kashmiri Pandits took it as a, chalta hai, he'll come, we'll have our own meeting, we'll tell him, what about us, what's going on. So Sushma Chaudhary shows up in December. Specific question, we're going to build housing for you. Do you want it in the valley or do you want it in the Jammu region? And not one person said in the valley. Not one person in that leadership team said valley. So that set the stone, because right after that, the whole thing got codified. It got codified into the 2008 Prime Minister's relief package, where they basically said, all right, these guys don't want to go back. So what can I want to still help them. So what will we do? We'll at least get some jobs going, put them in these transit camps elsewhere around the valley in 10 districts or less, and basically at least make some presence, because these fellows don't want to go back. Now it's very funny, because after the government came in, after the BJP government came in the power, they had a CCS meeting on Kashmiri Pandits. They brought in all the intelligence inputs they had, all the people from IB and others, and they made an assessment how do we modify this 2008 PM package. And at the end of the day, the consensus was there is no other way. These people are not going back. This is a ground intelligence information. And so all we can do is we can perhaps garnish the package a little bit better. And that came out to be the PM development package of 2015. So what I'm saying is, we have essentially a problem. The government thinks it is helping us by creating essentially this ability for the people to come through the jobs, a certain number of people, and maintain some kind of a presence, because they genuinely, absolutely believe Kashmiri Pandits are not going to go back in large numbers, no matter what we say and with what rhetoric we do. So the way I would have, and as I said, this is born test of time. This is from Congress party, this is from BJP, the same everywhere. So from a realistic strategic point of view, first we have to understand what that process is. What are the various features that they see in that process? BJP, for example, did enhance by saying about we'll do the temple refurbishment, we'll ensure that there are pandits living around major temples so that there will be certain sustenance. But the idea was you have essentially two essential elements. You have essentially a very small amount of Kashmiri pandits who are left in the valley. And then you have these essentially government employees that are coming in and will take some jobs and will stay over there. And so you start from that point of view, and then you say, well, can government add to it? Can government change it? Can government sort of go beyond those things? Of course it can do it. But realistically speaking, what I'm saying is that we have to decide on within the contours of what is there and how best it can be exploited. We can obviously speak all kinds of idealistic ways of what we want and what we wish. But the fact of the matter is the government's assessment is that the process that they are doing right now is essentially the process which will ensure the Pandit identity in the valley, even when Pandits don't want to come back. So if you want to convince them that you are coming back, well, I'm telling you, it has got to be more than speeches. Some people have to do different things in different ways, because speeches and press releases and that sort of thing is not going to let it. So you either follow them, understand them, and then improve on what they have already put in the system, or if you want to make them do differently, that's a major uphill task. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul sir, for your views. Very nice hearing you out. So with that, I would just like to introduce our next speaker, well-known academician. All of us know him. I would request Mr. Sudhir Sopori to please speak. Sopori sir, you are on mute. You will have to unmute yourself.
नहीं, मैंने रिक्वेस्ट किया था संजय जी से कि मैं सिर्फ सुनूंगा, बाकियों की बातें मैं ज़्यादा इसमें बोलूंगा नहीं. बट 2 मिनट मैं सिर्फ यही कहूँगा कि ये जो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन विच हैज़ बीन आस्क्ड कि आखिर कब तक, बट मेनली आई थिंक वी हैव टू आस्क दिस क्वेश्चन, whom do we ask this question, आखिर कब तक? Should we ask it to the government of India, who should be responsible? Should we ask this question to the state government, or we should ask the local politicians and other politicians that Akhir Kab Tak will be staying away from our roots, as Ashok Bhanji was mentioning? Or should we also ask the larger Hindu community of this country? And finally, whether we should ask it ourselves. Can we come on a platform where we can put our views together in front of all these organizations? So this question is important, but very important, whom do we ask and how do we proceed further? I'm not going to speak much on this. I leave it to the other panelists to talk about it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be present here and listen to other speakers.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sopori sir. I would now move on and request Mr. Kuldeep Khoda to please take the mic. Khoda sir.
Thank you, Sunil ji. Thanks for inviting and to say a few words. As you rightly mentioned, I think we should not try to repeat what has been already said. But some points may need some elaboration. Of course, I'll touch on those also. But the interesting point which caught my attention just now was Mr. Sopori's very apt observation to whom we should ask this question, Akhir Kab Tak. I think he gave enough indication as to whom to these questions to be asked. The question has to be asked to the government, to us also, mainly, and to the Indians in the larger context. Let me start from the very fact that the KP community has been a disoriented community as far as representing the case is concerned. We have a large number of organizations which mushroomed and only multiplied over the years without reaching a common objective. And when we look at the programs of all these groups, we find the issues are common, but the problem is that we are not able to present those issues from a common platform. As I have seen the mindset and functioning of these groups, I find very little chance of these groups coming together and raising a single voice, one voice to represent the cause of the community. Having said so, we should not be disappointed also that we cannot have some common objectives. At least we should learn from the separatists that they were also able to unite and have a common platform in the form of Hurriyat, and they made a representation at all levels, whether nationally, internationally, or with our own enemies like Pakistan and others, by way of common points which they projected in different platforms, whether it was the talks with the government of India, even at the highest level with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, or in the global platforms through various mediums in the United Nations, in the UNSC, or OIC, and many other human rights groups and organization platforms, even International Court of Justice. So at least we should try and have some common minimum program. So we have to ask this question to ourselves, Akhir Kab Tak, as to how we can contribute to the return of KPs, A, B, to other issues, the retrieving of land property, employment, creation of job opportunities in private sector, whether in Jammu or in Kashmir. So there are a host of issues on which there'll be no difference of opinion among all these groups we have. So let's ask this question ourselves and see, आखिर कब तक हमने अलग अलग रहना है और अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे अलग अलग वॉइस रेज करनी है और अलग अलग तरीके से अलग अलग मिनिस्टर्स को चाहे दिल्ली में या कहीं पे मिलना है और ये भी कहना है कि हमारी प्रॉब्लम्स ये है और साथ में दूसरे को काटना भी, कि वो नहीं हमें, he is not the person who represents us. Who is here to meet Home Minister? Who is here to meet the Lieutenant Governor or anybody else for that matter? The dissipation of energy is obvious and it is very frustrating sometimes. Now, while having made these observations, let me tell you from my own personal point of view, I'll tend to differ with a bit with my dear friend, Mr. Ashok Man, as far as the political dispensation in the country is concerned. I am of the opinion, and I think many others will join me in that opinion, is that this is the only government at center which could think and abrogate practically 370 or 335A. I don't think any other government could have dared or would have guts to do so. They are capable of taking strong decisions. Maybe we need to present our cause in a better manner with the enforcement of voice from the Hindu community all over the country. Or not only Hindu community, but let me say the Indians who believe in idea of India and who genuinely feel that Indians, the people who represented the idea of India and Kashmir, have been exiled at the point of gun. The second point I would again mention that we have seen talks with the separatists or with Pakistan have not yielded any results. There are lots of people who are giving us these ideas. And if we look at it from a mere commonsensical point of view, the talks are not going to lead us anywhere. You can't talk to a person who is not reconciled to the idea of India, to the integrity of India, to the sovereignty of India. It is not going to yield any results. The back channel has failed. Lots of back channels have been tried. And telling you very frankly, I have been very closely associated with these back channels. I have found one common objective in those all back channels. They always wanted to propagate themselves as persons who can be useful, but who never proved to be useful, who only wanted to be in press and in some limelight without really contributing anything. At least the results were not obvious. Nothing came out of those back channels or with the talks. So pursuing a line which has proved to be totally unproductive will be wastage of time and effort, and in the process will lead ourselves on a path which will drive us only to wasting of time and energy. Now, as far as India is concerned, on the taking a macro view of India's positions vis-a-vis Pakistan and vis-a-vis settling terrorism in Kashmir is concerned, the only option for India is to ensure that Pakistan is made to pay for its misadventures in Kashmir. Our policy has been more of reactive nature than proactive nature. Whether it were the bold actions of Uri surgical strikes or Balakot air strikes, they were also reactive in nature rather than proactive. We reacted, we launched the Uri strikes only when our brigade headquarters in Uri was attacked. We launched Balakot air strikes only after we lost 40 brave CRPF boys in Pulwama. We have not learned anything from even smaller countries like Israel and Sri Lanka, who bulldozed terrorism in no uncertain terms and made the enemies pay the price for those misadventures and settle the issue once for all. I'm really sometimes, there are lots of international dimensions to it. I don't want to discuss those, like the China having a role in the issue, or the global powers having some say on India-Pakistan relations or on Kashmir issue. But big countries, powerful countries, and the countries which have their pride, they have thought beyond these dimensions and they have gone all out, sometimes even not bothering about the consequences, and that has many times paid. I think we are too defensive in our approach with Pakistan. That needs to be impressed upon on the government as well as all Indians to settle this issue once for all. But as far as Mr. Sajawal raised a very valid point that when the question of settlement came of Kashmiri Pandits in Valley, everybody, or there was more voice for having a rehabilitation colony in Jammu rather than Kashmir. Now, let me tell you very frankly, if any of us is being asked to go and settle in Kashmir in the present situation without security, is it possible? No, it is not possible. You have seen it, that if you go and settle in the present situation at any place in Kashmir, you can be targeted anytime. The fact that you are not getting targeted is because they don't want to target you. But if they want to target you, you can be targeted the way they did it in 1990, you can be again targeted. That's the situation. And this situation is not going to change by killing terrorists or having counterinsurgency operations in Kashmir. The army and the police have been doing a great job in killing large number of terrorist commanders. But that the situation is not going to settle unless Pakistan's role in terrorism is eliminated. So as long as you keep on killing the terrorists, fresh supplies keep on coming from across, fresh recruitments are made, this issue which has been going on for the last 32 years, that's going to continue. So in that situation, asking any Kashmiri Pandit to go and settle in Kashmir, nobody will feel comfortable in that. But that doesn't mean that we have to give up. Yes, employment, the way employment package has been worked out, some settlements have been made with some security. Yes, it's not absolutely foolproof security, but yes, reasonably secure. And that we should encourage. But at the same time, we can go back and settle once the terrorism is finished, and for that, a realistic effort has to be made. And in case terrorism is not going to be settled, the only option is to have a separate area, which again appears to be very difficult in the present situation. But BJP is known for bold decisions. You cannot rule that out also. If in future, at any point of time, it is thought feasible or practical by the government to take that sort of decision, we cannot say that's ruled out, because 370 or 35A abrogation was also ruled out by most of the people. In fact, people were talking in terms of the fact that Supreme Court has already settled this issue. But we found that it could be done, and this government did it. So within these limitations, I think we have to propagate our views from a single platform, may not be as a united party, but in the form of a loose alliance, but with a common minimum program for the government. Pursue the government to take effective action against Pakistan, which is result-oriented, to settle the terrorism. And then other packages like rehabilitation package, they have been working very well. I must say that the return of land or the return of the distressed sales which have been made, the government is taking that very seriously, and action is being taken on ground. You may not have lots of cases where the land has returned, but obviously it's creating a lot of pressure on many of those who have benefited out of distressed sale in Valley, and they are under a lot of pressure. So it's not disappointing situation is not there, but I think we need to put more pressure on government on these issues. I know I am hopeful that if we have a joint perspective, the wait cannot be endless. We will progress and we can achieve some results, though in the present situation, it will be gradual. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Koda, for your kind views. Very, very rightly said. And with that, I will move over. I would want to bring in somebody who has actually worked on the ground, who actually works, and we've been talking about people in Jammu camps. The person who works on the ground with people in the Jammu camps we have with us is Mr. Raj Katru. So Raj Katru has a first-hand ground level experience. So Raji, would you please take over and give us your thoughts?
Namaskar, Mara. I didn't know that I had to speak like Professor Sopuri. I was just going to listen. But anyway, thanks. I'll not take much time. I like to continue with what Professor Sopori said. He asked the question, Kab tak? We have to ask this question. But I want to add another thing. What do we mean by return and rehabilitation? It is a slogan we have used for the last so many years now. What does it really mean? And if we understand these two questions, we might be able to come to a certain kind of a consensus. Because one of the problems which Khoda Sahab raised is that we have so many groups asking for so many things. And it's probably comes out of the thing that these words do mean different things to different people. When we talk about return and rehabilitation of people from Jagati or of the camps or of what I would call economically less well-off community of Kashmiri Pandits, it has a certain meaning. They want to go back to their roots for a livelihood also. They want to go back there to live. They want to go back to farming. They have aspirations, whether it's possible or not, but they have aspirations. But then there is a major community of Kashmiri Pandits. We are estimated about 7 lakh people, out of which 75% of the Kashmiri Pandits are spread all over India and United States, Canada, UK, everywhere. For them, return and rehabilitation has a very different meaning. And most politicians are very intelligent, governments are intelligent, they understand that these people are not going to go back to Kashmir and leave their jobs, leave their businesses, leave everything and go back to the Kashmir. So what I'm trying to say is that if we have to go, we have to define what return and rehabilitation means for the Kashmiri Pandit community, or for this part of the Kashmiri Pandit community and this part of the Kashmiri Pandit community, or this part of the Kashmiri Pandit community. I think what Professor Sopori was also pointing to, I put it in a different way. I call it, rather than return and rehabilitation, we must look at reconciliation, engagement, and reconstruction. Reconciliation, if we have to ask the question of Akhir Kab Tak, we have to ask it to the local civil society in Kashmir. If we ignore the local civil society in Kashmir, with whom I'm going to live as a next door neighbor, then I'm at the mercy. I don't know where I am, in the air, kahin hawa mein hai, kuch hi pata nahi. Until we engage constructively with the Kashmiri Muslim society, to be very clear on this, we have to ask them the question, bhai ab to kar liya aap log ne, ye genocide ho gaya, ye ho gaya. Are you willing to engage with us and have a reconciliation of the thing that unless the host, the local people, want you there, it's waste of time, in my opinion, even to try. तो कभी भी बहुत सारे लोग, only 3 months ago you saw what happened. 2 दिन के अंदर 3 people were killed and the whole community just ran. You couldn't get flights. So it's a very, very dangerous thing for us to say that we can go and live there. As Abhi Khoda Sahab ne bhi bola, you can't go there and live there safely and say everything is fine. Or reconciliation is a very important thing. But what we want to do from the government is to make it easy for us to engage with the society. Kab tak ye terrorism chalega, we don't know. How long, when the peace will prevail, we don't know. It may take 10 years, it may take 50 years. But that does not mean that we should not start engaging in the Kashmir, engaging at a civil society level, engaging at business level, engaging at every level, including political level. So Kashmiri Pandits, I think, need to sit down together and create a roadmap for reconciliation, engagement, reconstruction. Return and rehabilitation is part of that. Return and rehabilitation cannot happen unless we ask this fundamental question, कि भाई हम लोग कब तक बाहर रहेंगे? And we have to ask it to both the communities, Kashmiri local Muslim community and Kashmiri Pandit community, because they have to live together. It is unrealistic for us to think that we can go there and live without the consent or support of the local community. So this is what I think. I have certain ideas on how we must engage, but I think this is not the forum for that. I don't want to take any more time. I just want to give this idea that return and rehabilitation is an idea which varies from people to people. When I talk to people in Jagati, for them return and rehabilitation is something else. When I talk to myself, for me return and rehabilitation is something else. When I talk to somebody in Delhi, it means something else. For everybody, it means something else. And we are 12 people here. For 12 of us, it means different things. So when it means different things for 12 of us, the whole community has a different meaning for this. So politicians get also confused. They don't know what these Kashmiri Pandits want, because the fact is that we ourselves do not know what we want. So until we come to a consensus and what do we want, it's not going to happen by engaging with any politics, whether it's Congress or BJP. Thank you very much. I think that's all I wanted to say at this stage. We'll see.
Thank you, Mr. Katru.
Thank you.
So nice to hear you. So moving on, I would next call upon Mr. B.L. Saraf to let's know his viewpoints. Saraf sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
सुनते हैं भाई बात?
हाँ, please carry.
Thank you. Ban Saab said very rightly that this government, rather this party which is rolling at the center, has no has that political will for us to take us back to Valley. I would like to remind Ban Saab and all of you, my friends here, that in 2017, our legislature, which was in existence at that time, moved a resolution, 4-line resolution. Moved by Umar Abdullah. That time he was in opposition. The party, the probably government was led by Mehbooba Mufti or Mehbooba Mufti that time. The resolution said that this house unanimously resolves to take Kashmiri Pandits back. In that way, exactly, I don't remember the wording is that, but it is the content of that. We will take them back honorably and settle them according to their status. And the parties to that resolution were PDP, BJP, National Conference, and Congress. From 2017 till date, we have seen nothing, no movement on that resolution. That is one thing. When we talk of this going back, it is essentially, it is the question of confidence in me to go back. If I feel confident enough, then probably I will think of going to that place, otherwise not. So before we embark upon real question of returning back, some confidence has to be built in me. And we have been saying it that, please, we know this is a very onerous task, so you can't take us back. But the question is, give us some semblance of hope that you will take us back. We addressed this problem. We told this to every party in the government. We're starting from BJP, National Conference, Congress, PDP. And we gave them three ways how they could build my trust. How could they can instill confidence in me. The first thing was, please protect my shrines there by a statute. If you have a law for Gurdwaras, if I have a law for mosques, why can't you have a law for me? So we must give credit to, maybe I may be talking politically incorrect, but let it be so. Credit must be given to the Umar Abdullah National Conference who produced this, who introduced this bill in assembly in 2009, but Hindu Science Protection Law and Bill. And who scuttled it? Kisne sabotage kiya? Please hold, I am saying it without any fear of contradiction. BJP scuttled it. And then Congress people also come. Karan Singh, and they were against it, but it is the BJP who came up the assembly, said that if this bill pass ho gayi, khoon ki nadiyan beh jayenge. This is a question of confidence. Now, what I have been primarily saying, apart from going there, what are my concerns? Please protect my shrines, Just give me a minority right. I am a minority which has been established by everybody. Please, just to give me that right. And third, whatever land I have left there, please protect that. On all the three counts, all the governments have failed us. Now, people say here about abrogation of Article 370. Maybe for some people it is good, but to me, as a Kashmiri person, could anybody give me one reason why I should welcome it? Whereas I have 4 reasons to say that I have been robbed of my rights. First thing is, I kept talking about minority rights. We didn't have any law here at that time. All the government, all those national commissions of minorities, whom we approached, they requested state government and central government, please have a law for this in a state of Jammu and Kashmir where minorities can be protected. Law was not given. And what happened to me on the other worst part of it? After Article 370, National Commission Law, Minority Commission Law has been applicable to Jammu and Kashmir. So what are the consequences of it? What my Muslim friends would get before, in absence of law, through backdoor, now they will get. It's a matter of right. And where is my position? Who will treat me as a Hindu? Maybe I'm a Kashmir Pandit, but I'm a Hindu primarily. Who will treat Hindu as a minority in India? Can I dream of being a Hindu minority protected as a minority in India? So this is one, what can benefit or what we call, I got for 370. Now, they were talking the Prime Minister's package. They said sometimes when it was given by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, he was a very candid. He said that this is not Prime Minister's package. This employment is not itself a package for return. It's a one component of that. And till now, that component has not been fulfilled. It is pending since what you got to say, it's 2008, and it was given effect in 2011. 2011 से आज तक ये जो कंपोनेंट्स की 6000 नौकरियां वो नहीं पूरी हो गई, और हम कह रहे हैं कि आप हमको वापस ले जाएंगे. और यहाँ बात चली मंदिरों की. Somebody said that government is protecting, they are renovating shrines and trying to rehabilitate Kashmiri Pandits around that. No, sir, this is wrong. I tell out of my experience. I belong to Shopian. We have a very famous Kapal Mochan place there. That's the revered place. वो शोपियान टाउन के बाहर दरिया के पार है वहां. उसकी अभी जमीन थी. About hundreds of canals. कुछ तो कुछ हो गई, कुछ बचा ली. उसके साथ कुछ एक पैक था. We requested government at the time and present government also, please, ये एक पैच है, यहाँ कुछ जो मकान बनाने का सोच रहे हैं, एक ब्लॉक यहाँ भी बना लीजिए. Movement, this process was started, but we don't know what for reason this was ultimately scuttled. और अब कहा कि हमको वहां से कहीं और दी जगह ला रहे हो. अब बात हुई कि आखिर कब तक सवाल हमें अपने आप से भी पूछना. Sopuri sir said very rightly, we have to ask this question to ourselves. हमारी प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि अगर कोई गवर्नमेंट पहले उनकी पर्टिकुलर विल नहीं है, चलो फॉर लिप सर्विस, whenever they move on, they show some movement, हम कहीं से खड़ा होकर जाते हैं. From nowhere we suddenly erupt and start criticizing that move. तो होता क्या है? Rather than being a part of solution, we become part of the problem. Not only that, we create solutions, we throw up solutions which have a tendency to create problems, invite problems. That is our problem. That is our bane. इसके बारे में आप जब तक इनवर्ड हम आप नहीं देखेंगे, तब तक इसका मसला कोई हल होने वाला नहीं है. अब बात चली कि रिकंसिलिएशन की बात. बड़ी अच्छी बात कही. अगर हमें कश्मीर में रहना है तो वी हैव टू लिव विद मुस्लिम्स. इसमें कोई दो राय होनी नहीं चाहिए. और हमारी एक्टिविटीज खासकर टीवी चैनल्स पर वो जो दिल्ली में होती है, क्या होती रहती है वो, इस पर भी ध्यान दे दीजिए. हम आई हैव बीन पार्ट ऑफ CDR, जो रिकंसिलिएशन की बात चल रही है, 2008 से हम इसकी कोशिश कर रहे हैं. We met Hudat leaders also, we met civil Kashmir society also. इस श्राइन की बिल के बारे में अब अंदर की बात क्या है भगवान जाने. शायद बाहर से वो कह रहे हैं अब आ जाए, अंदर से उनकी बात क्या होगी भगवान जाने. मगर इस श्राइन बिल की बात जब स्टार्ट हुई, they were forthright in supporting us. They made it a public statement that there should be law for protection of these shrines like we have our Awqaf Act. अगर रिकंसिलिएशन की बात जाना हो तो रिकंसिलिएशन के लिए हमें हालात साजगार बनाने पड़ेंगे. अगर हम साजगार न बना सकेंगे, we are not paving the rights, but please don't distort them in sitting in Delhi TV stations. But this is one more point. What I want to emphasize here. अब ये जो ये बात चली थी यहाँ जाने की, हालात कश्मीर में साजगार अभी दिस सिक्योरिटी इश्यूज और हम जा नहीं पाएंगे. और कुछ लोग तो कहते हैं हम बिल्कुल जा नहीं सकेंगे, हमारे बच्चे अब बाहर सेटल हो गए, हम क्या करेंगे. To those friends and to you friends, I will request that it is not the question of my physical living in Kashmir that is to be emphasized. It is my right to live there. And right to live, Ban Sahab yahan baithe hain, with a senior advocate, he will tell me there is a negative component also. Right to live means that I have right not to live there in the Kashmir also. मैं कश्मीर में रहूं या ना रहूं, it should be left to me, not to somebody else. हालात ठीक हों, मैं वहां रहूंगा. हालात ठीक नहीं है, मैं वहां नहीं रहूंगा. This living and not living should be left to me. Please don't do this thing. हालात कश्मीर में हालात खराब हैं, वहां हम रह नहीं पाएंगे. ठीक है, रह नहीं पाएंगे, मगर जो राइट है, रेस्टोरेशन ऑफ एग्रेशन राइट. अगर मैं कश्मीर से, मैं स्पीकिंग फॉर माई सेल्फ, मैं कश्मीर से 84 से बाहर हूँ. due to exigencies of job, मैं 84 से बाहर हूँ. मगर जब भी शिवरात्रि आती थी, 1 month earlier I will plan for going to my home Shopian and celebrate this Shehraz there. That time I was not living there, so I am not living as even now there. But उस वक्त की living, non-living और इस वक्त की non-living, there is a hell of a difference. I want that my right should be restored to the level which I had in from 1984 to 89. ये बात आप लोगों को, अपने यंग जनरेशन को बताइए, भाई आप लोगों को वहां रहना जरूरी नहीं है, बट यू मस्ट हैव अ राइट. अगर आपको दिल कभी चाहे आप वहां जा सकते हैं, अगर दिल नहीं चाह सकते वहां नहीं रह सकते. These are the some my straight thoughts. अगर आगे मौका मिला इंटरव्यू की तो आगे बात कर लूंगा. Thank you for this time giving me.
Thank you, Saraf Sahab. Very nice thought. So now let's move on. I would request Ashok Kolji to enlighten us with his views. Ashok ji.
Namaskar, everybody, and greetings from Canada. I think return and rehabilitation is only half a demand, as far as I'm concerned. The complete demand should be that return and rehabilitation and the revival of the Aboriginal culture of the valley. Now, Aboriginality has various dimensions to it. Back in 1993, Vijayji and myself, we prepared a white paper on it using United Nations Human Rights Commission definition, which is right to land, right to resources, and right to self-government. But Aboriginality is more than that. As Sai Deepak, I think if you have read some of his works, he argues that Aboriginality is related to the culture that you live in the Aboriginal lands that you own. So that has to be a very much that, I mean, how do we make people understand that? And how do we make the younger generation of Muslims who don't know us, who were never exposed to that culture, how do we make them understand what it is? So particularly, we have to ingrain among our own youngsters, wherever they are living, all throughout the world, that we are the Aboriginals of Kashmir and we live the Aboriginal culture of the valley. As far as I'm concerned, it may be politically incorrect, the Muslims living in the valley are not living the Aboriginal culture of the valley. Only Kashmiri Pandits are, only Kashmiri Pandits have kept it alive for the last thousands and thousands of years, no matter whether they were in Jammu working or in Delhi and so on and so forth, right? Of course, when you talk about these things, there are people with vested interests who will create distortions. If you follow the WhatsApp University from time to time, you will recognize that there are deliberate distortions being created at a historical level, at a cultural level, and at a political level. And political level, we saw recently the statement by Farooq Abdullah himself that we were ethnically cleansed or we were forced to leave the valley by Jagmohan, right? I mean, so these vested interests will play their games. They will play their, and we have to expect that. But in spite of that, these vested interests, I think we have to first understand ourselves that we are the Aboriginals, what that means, convey it to the powers to be, and also educate through whatever means the younger generation of Muslims who, as was rightly said, you will need their consensus for us to be able to go back. Now, some of you may have heard there is a movie come out called Kashmir Files. I have not seen the movie, but I have read a lot of the reviews. We should promote this movie because it does talk about some of the points that I'm raising here. So it is something that we should not scoff at, but definitely something we should use to our advantage. Now, when it comes to the political dispensation in India of various colors, they understand the word Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb, right? And the civil society also understands this kind of thing. And we had a parallel in Kashmir. We called it Laldan Nundrish Tehzeeb. And but there needs to be emphasis on that, and that cannot only come from us. That has to come from the civil society in Kashmir Valley today. They have to do their bit. We cannot all put our the burden of the history on Kashmiri Pandits alone. The burden of history must also rest with the Muslim dispensation living in Kashmir today. Now, I've often asked myself the question, does the government of India, even though they are Hindutva government or they may believe in Hindutva and things like that, do they understand what I am talking about here, the Aboriginal culture of Kashmir, which is thousands of years old, or are they just simply paying it a lip service, or do they have other plans? If they can earmark the land for the army and so on and so forth, I don't see any reason why they can't earmark the land for us. If they have the will, if they mean well for us. Let me then come to the roadmap quickly. Well, roadmap, there was of course, a lot of people have been thinking about this roadmaps, and some people have called it smart cities. Some people say we should look at a separate area, we should look at, and so on and so forth. One of the roadmaps that I was impressed with was what was called a chakra and spoke model. There will be a central chakra and the spokes that will go to different areas in the valley. And again, with the aim of reviving the Aboriginal culture of the valley. And this is something that we should take cognizance of. And finally, let me just end by saying, unless you revive the Aboriginal culture of the valley, without that, there is no Kashmir, as far as I'm concerned. It is a piece of land that is governed by India under its constitution. That's all about it. It has no Kashmir in it. Let's be quite frank about it. And Kashmir will only be there if the Aboriginal culture of the valley is revived. How we do it at a political level, how we do it at an administrative level, and how we do it, create a roadmap for such an exercise. As Sopari Saab said, that we have to, amongst ourselves, come to a consensus. And I will stop there. I do believe this is important, that we emphasize the aboriginality of the valley and associate that with us, and therefore, moving forward, make everybody, including the rest of India, including the younger generation and of Muslims in the valley, understand that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashokji. Thanks for bringing up a very, very important point about the Aboriginal culture, and that is really very important. I think somewhere across the while going through, we have lost touch with our Aboriginality, and that needs to be brought back. It's very, very important. So thanks a lot. With that, I would now move. We're talking about return. We're talking about rehabilitation. Let's have the thoughts from somebody who is actually sitting there in Kashmir right now, and who knows the pulse much better than all of us. So I would request Sanjay Tikuji. Sanjay Tikuji has been living in Kashmir all through, and he knows it much better. So I would request Sanjay Tikuji to come forward and present his thoughts. Sanjay ji, over to you.
Thank you, Sunil ji, and namaskar, Kashmir Pete, by Sarni. So I may be allowed to speak in Kashmiri. So I hope everybody is understanding Kashmiri.
Welcome.
Question Maharaj ki Akhir Kab Tak. You wot in the Pati Mabasa Tresor very Bozar ke Akhir Kab Tak magar solution में कहाँ देवा. Number one, number two. You left our road Kashmir was during this turmoil. Going to SS Lagbak 7,000 families in 1992. Now it has been reduced to 808 families. That includes the Hindus also. Agar Hindu kada is never the Kashmir Bata it is around as on day 650 families living at 272 places in Kashmir Valley. Saini khatra yemo yeti jand thol jind. So you want ki originality ya yusai culture was is Kashmir chi mani se. Kashmir cha na Muslimanan se na Indian security forces se. Tadi me itkin ye ki yus yiman yeti khayal was 1990s months and साथ selective killings गए, rapes गए के, चिट्ठा इतना अब, तंपत सिमर रहा है कि यिम दराय ये बनियो एक Islamic state within the Indian larger context, and use visibility basan till 93-94 time because कि essentially hakan on existence service because of security reason. So it is confined to Panizai. But after 1994, it's dry buchi, nafar dry buchi, dry. Then we started the right from the Ganpadiyar up to Kir Bhavani. इथे कि हमारा पूरा इस्पात ये दशहरा अगर तो पाया दशहरा from 2007 पे It was Bansab Saglete. And after that, Kormara City Kormara is Ved Bhagwan was near Nati Pet Smara Korgoin is Ramchadrin Pet. So ये हावने खतरे की दुनिया से हावने खतरे में especially यस मेन कम्युनिटी नेबर ये तुमन हावने खतरे की कशीर मंचु वुंति कशर बाट जिंदा कशीर यम सात 1997 मज गोनिक मैसेकर गो संग्राम पोरास में यस में 7 कशर 25 मारने ब्रूटली एम्पर तोर लोकन फिक्री कि न कशीर मंचु वुंति क्या बाट बसा पद गो 1998 पर गो till 2003 तक गए कम से कम 5 मैसेकर्स गए तेलवनी गो पेटबुक गो हुगामा गो ऐसे ये गांधरबल गो अतुर फिक्री की वारिया नफरन ओसनी ख्याल की कशीर मच बदबस as on datus was you situation and especially after the abrogation of Article 370, Yasma Sani community Kehan Nafra su dance score, then dance pata escuta Piausu Jelun. Second Bulgans Bayanika. Agar Bayan Kadni Biam that it will take hours to address that. After 370 the abrogation go, serious Waranki Kashir Mazgai Halati. There was no violence in 2019, but you see, as energy, well, you see, civil society violence. I mean, Sarab sir, I mean, I say Sarab sir, and I see various civil society meetings. Kadin Kashir ones. Yatmazes youth, Donmani side and King in Malab boy, youths, Nabara, Timor, in Yetik youth, Muslim youths, the more court mano interaction. They miss them as a go, Senagas must go viral. But use breathing space, yet kiss Musalmanas meet. Tak Doranas. Well, after 5th of August. Just in breathing space means Atmas Dravak no group arc. They are just between the age of 13 to 21. Basically Vushmuti culture. 90s militancy of terrorism was Atmas Koresh anti survive Kashirmas yours local in the sense yours neighborhood, yours Hamsai. And Mrs. Kaitna some Torasa, so Darat Ursus. Now, but this militancy, it is first time during last 32 years, Ban server supply, Sadawal server supply, I am first time under security. And my name is still on top of the list in the terrorist organization. Situation entirely different. Situation could have worse case in the coming months, nobody knows. Weakness, yes, because Chateau January issue involved, and we have been informed by the security agencies you will not roam outside your houses from 24th till 27th. This situation, Mara. This situation ki achne hakan dictate terms hi karit kun the government across the table space. Misal 25th of October Mara Gayas meeting with the present Home Minister. As the of Justan Kunjai Jai and Urshad families in you to Karunchuti at least I want to die peacefully in somewhere else. Not because we have faced a lot of problems during the last 32 years. क्वेश्चन जवाब मारा उस कितने मारे गए 5 अगस्त के बाद हमारा कोई हिसाब 5 मारे गए तो 5 ही मारे गए ना 5 अगस्त के बाद लेकिन यहाँ से तो 32 मुसलमानों को मारा गया यहाँ से हमने 44 टेररिस्ट हैव किल्ड यहाँ पे तो बिहारी भी मारे गए ये इसी होम मिनिस्टर आशि तत क्या करियो तुम एक्सपेक्ट कि अमिश पेन Beside that, Rajnath ji is Home Minister. tٔmِس ٲس pain towards our community. But a present issue, this present Home Minister issue, أمِس مَران چھَو نہٕ pain وین کِہیٖنۍ, and he is not allowing the common Kashmiri person in his office. Wunkenes چھُ یہِ وٕچھُن کہِ یِم اکھ ٲسۍ 808 families چھِ plus وٕنکیٚنس تانۍ گٔے 6 ساسن منٛز کٔر وٕنکیٚنس تانۍ اکھ گٔے تِم پٔتِم 4 ساس یُس اوترٕ last year SSB یَن post کٔڑۍ 2000 post ٲسۍ تِم لگ بگ تَتھ منٛز مَران چھُ وٕنکیٚنس تانۍ 1000 they have joined today. So یہِ چھُ ٹوٹلس منٛز اگر strength سٲنۍ KPs ہِنٛدۍ چھِ یہِ مَران چھُ وٕنکیٚنس 3 گٔے 9. It is not more than 10,000 in the valley, but presently in the valley, it will be there more than 5,000. Summer's month you want. You can see never Gasania, Yimson, village months, families, Basan, Timothy Bono, and James Dilemmas Makat, and they will be back after sure. Us as a community, we lost everything. Na mara kori BJP lost, na kori Congress lost, na kori yetis Musliman lost, na kori yetik security force lost. Yamsat migration gay, Barbarisha is downtown as much, Barbarisha Habakadal Kampati, Gasan is Basan Os, ki kya than shu Kashir mas gomut. Till 1998, 1999 is that. अगर तो आज तेरी योर पद के सिर्फ यमन इलाके में तो ये बात में कि ये तो उसका पंडित थे बस है। वही सवाल कि ऐसे क्या पाइज क्या करूँ as a community इसके उनकी ये तो organization शु गैनस की काट नफर शु कैसा शु वाला बिस्से representative में उसके बनो representative number 2 इन तो में तो अगर Kir Bhavani Melas was the Sas Pandit Tara, and they are moving in Kashmir Valley. Tim the Sas Pandit catch happen the Kashmir Mazruz. Bishu transit camp gay Khara. Jim transit camp में बासन आने वाले समय में they are the concentration camps. Israel's was the concentration. या Palestinians was also. क्योंकि situation शी की ये साथ government या government agencies तो खिलाफ छव काम कराने या इस खिलाफ च काम करा तो क्या करियो तो expect आज DC थी is मतलब before 5th of August 2019 वो वन होता है sun voice कहता है but after 5th of August sun voice our voice is मजल ये की बिहित इच्छा है कि हमारा problem अच्छा solution का छाड़ो solution शु कि अगर इस तारुण शु लोगन जितने येडवेड लोग द्राज जितने किसी तेजबड लोग वापस तक कानवाई मंचे तैयार सरी लोग इन घर सरी नते ये ना अगर इस वुशो तो पाने history exodus history अगर वुशो सरी शन आमद वापस जाए अगर 30% या 20 इतने cultural service बना कि युस अतिशो जत्ती मज तिम ची यसान के ऐसा तरह वापस अगर तुम यसान इस तरह वापस बाकी लोग क्या तिमन करान सबोटाइज तम खत जक्ति मज वुशु तुम कि पतवन महंगे लगभग 4.5 दो तिमन नो डाउट दैट इज अ वेरी स्मॉल इस प्रोटेस्ट गसान डेली मन गवर्नमेंट क्या प्रॉब्लम अगर तुम डिमांड कर 25,000 पर मंथ 3,000 रुपये पे क्या आज नेरा अगर तुम अच्छे वनी आज तु तेरी जोम मारा हेकान तरित कि हेकान सर्वाइव कर economically most of the families below मतलब poverty line पे यवान यम कशीर मज बीच तम पत ब्याक चीज कि वन अगर कस दोद दाग करान तम दवा आसान तमिस पास आसान यह मारा दुकानदार मुसलमान यह पचान वन पचान मगर अगर मे वनु तुम वत तस जोम तत कुछ मरा डोगर पच मे सो तथ सारी करान मतलब हाई मतलब पैनल they are highly qualified at the much experience. लेकिन जो solution अगर कहीं दिथी यम सिक ऐसे मिले क्या वो minority commission हुन chairman was recently आमत और we had a meeting with him. तमन वो ऐसे तमिस वो ऐसे कि ऐसे करियो तो declare ethnic minority within the national minority मतलब minority commissioners. दोबारा आप दीजिए कुछ मैं तुम्हारे वो में कि ऐसे लिस्ट केपी क्लिंगजन लिस्ट सुची ये में इस मगर सुची में आज हवा टाटा में चोन हिंदुस्तान क्या करना है. So you people are not facing that kind of harassment you face करांच. टाइम खतर क्या कर लोगों मंदिर हिंस काथवर्स मंदिर 2007 में पेट चेस मंदिर लड़ा ऐसी खिलाफ करो FIR हमारा जमिस मस्जिद श्रीनगर मस्जिद. You can go through the website, High Court website या Supreme Court website. Sanjay Tiku and others versus Union of India हमारा जो win the case चला. अब बेचने वाला कौन है? बेचने वाला जो संजय तिकू ही. मुसलमान स्पेशलिस्ट ब्लेम कराएं कि या सोचे हमारा प्रॉपर्टी मगर बुचने इस दिमाग सका को. बुचने कौन बात रिप्रेजेंट कराएं कि बुचने फॉलोइंग मद्रास ठेकेदार. ये बात तिमन सिंह करान चक्का जिस तक मैनेजिंग कमेटी तिम से करा कर दोबारा हालात से खराब इसलिए जो का न्यू जनरल सेक्रेटरी चीफ प्रेसिडेंट जो सुई का ऐसा एक्चुअली विन द प्रॉपर्टी हमारा एक्चुअली गवर्नमेंट में झुकने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. हमारी टेम्पल प्रॉपर्टी वर्थ आज के डेट में 50,000 करोड़ की है. if you want that list we can provide you the list. क्योंकि रेट वो शुद्ध कहते बर्बशास में रेट 10,000 रुपीज और कनाल आज मारा $1.5 करोड़ बर्बशास में वह वो जवाहरनगर मज क्या प्रॉपर्टी यीज टेम्पल प्रॉपर्टी अटेंशन वन ती पाई कि अस कजा प्रॉपर्टी कंसल्टेशन कर्म. सो हालातन की मद्देनजर मतलब मोन कि वर्स टाइम वोल मज यथ मज मे बासान 8 फैमिली अत मज बचन 4 फैमिली बाकी गसन मारा खत्म. क्योंकि क्या बह वन आज यमिस पे मे एक्सपेक्टेशन कि यह कर मे प्रोटेक्ट सुई महाराज मे आज प्रोटेक्ट करान कहीं. आज महाराज टू बी फ्रैंक MIS तो स्टेट पुलिस आज पानवे मारा यह तग. सो अच्छु खतर बासान कि 15 रात कि मा ग कुन जाए कश्मीरी पंडितन पे हमले. दैट विल बी द ह्यूज मैसेकर. क्योंकि एजेंसी ती पान वही कोऑर्डिनेशन मज आज की डेट में कहीं. यह वनस हालात मारा में. LJ चिट लेखा LJ कह चीज वन अस जूनस मज मारा चिट लिखी कि अच्छे कत कर and we want to discuss the security issue also. वनस तान ती दिस मारा तमो अपॉइंटमेंट क्या बिंद्रो मारे एरे क्या. टू बी फ्रैंक अगर मिस्टर बिंद्रोस मारा या यम पत यह गई सरदारनी हिंस किलिंग द सोर्स तम मारा मिसफायर गोस. मिसफायर इन द सेंस तमन बासे यह कोल तमिस मारा मारा. और आज की डेट में मारा कम से कम 1.5 कश्मीरी पे मज बसान यम जात त्रित हिट लिस्टस मज. एंड यह ऑल ओवर यह कमिस कम सात यी हिट नोबडी नोज. यह मारा हालात यिथ. एंड कह त ऑर्गनाइजेशन वनस हेकान डिक्टेट टर्म्स कर अमित शाह कि हालात अगर यीत खराब तो क्या सिक्योरिटी सुनहरो मतलब तुम माइंडस मज वो वन ये फेस्टिवल ग आज तो फेस्टिवल चलान. आज मारा चलान चिले कलान फेस्टिवल. ये सिर्फ फेस्टिवल ये बेचू मज कहीं. अच्छा अब रही मंदिरों की बात. इस प्रोजेक्ट सोर स्मार्ट सिटी अंडर यह. अगर तुम वो गंतक यारस मज लगे 20 लाख रुपये. यम तथ Kanya asit timai kanya tujak korofratsu andai timai kanya malajak wapas. That is total kharcha agar son estimate not more than 5 lakh amount. वो लक्ष रुपये मारा द्राय इस माना ये शुरू किस वारे हाईलाइट गो ये रघुनाथ मंदिर फतेह कर लो वो वारे हाईलाइट के मंदों तत् मारा शिक लगी 17 लाख रुपये वही था गस्ता तौर तेरे पाने फिर कि 17 लाख ते लगी में थिकन so on ground zero स्पेक्ट ये सिचुएशन की बेहकना आज वही थी बोले बोस ब्रोड वाला मारा तेरी ये बुच्चू जिंदगी में कोरो अपनी के मतलब सिविल सोसाइटी से तेज काट करना बाकी से तेज काट करना वो सकाने मतलब सिक्योर पर पॉइंट करे मगर आज ना सिविल सोसाइटी ना हुरियत कुनी ना नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस कुनी ना पीडीपी कुनी ऐसे गसल तो गसो को सो एज ऑन डेट इस मंथ शी वुच कि अगर तरुण छु तेल छु फाइट कर अगर न तरुण छु तेल छु कुन जाय छान पन्ने खतर ये सारी रिहेबिलिटेट करो मैं वन तो ये 1992 में उस प्रोग्राम आमत अमेरिकन एनआरआई के यथ पे तमो करो कश्मीर समिति दिल्ली से कि तुम वुचतो जमीन कुन जाए इस करो तुम सारी एक जाय कुन जाए एडजस्ट तथ प्रोग्राम सह सबोटाइज कर यीस कालस क्योंकि मे पानस हिस्ट्री मे पन्न खुरान पे पाने तबर वजम हमेश बाकी एंजॉय कर सरदार वो तुम सरदार महाराज सान खुद ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम ये सरपाय 4 कौर वनकस तक इस्लाम कबूल कोर सरदार मैं सरदारों की बात कर रहा हूँ सरदार वनकस प्रॉब्लम नॉर्थस मज जमीन सरदार बसान तिम महाराज इत कोर मतलब इत महाराज तिमन ग तिमन महाराज ऑरिजिनल रेट ही मिलान जमीन मगर सरदार क्या कोर सरदार हिंदुस्तान सरदार खालिस्तान सरदार हुरियत पन सह कड़ान कि बोगस सराब साहब खो ज्यादा पान इस सराब साहब कित कड़ो जंग सो नॉट टेकिंग मोर टाइम कि बाकी जितने पैनलिस्ट क्वेश्चन एज ऑन डेट महाराज सिचुएशन सो कि सोचो कि रिटर्न गोस गसन पत कमन टर्मस पे गए सह महाराज आज हालात अगर सारी पैनलिस्ट वनकस वारकार बोजान अगर 808 फैमिली बचाव अगर कुछ जाय दियो प्लीज डू दैट वुड नॉट वांट टू लिव इन दिस कंडीशन नाउ अस मारा वो 90 मे वुचमुत 90 मज मारा 22 years old दोतर वरी यी वुचान 54 वनकस and we are the live witness of all kind of atrocities either by the state or by the non-state actors. Thank you. It's up to you.
Chalo, thank you, and Sanjay, that was so nice. Rather, I would say the facts which Sanjay ji has put forward are more of an eye-opener and should be food for thought. I think this gives us a lot of food for thought. We need to think in this direction as well. Having said that, I will move over to Krishna ji now. Krishna Banji. Krishna ji, can we have your thoughts, please? Krishna ji, you're on mute.
Right. Namaskar to everybody. And thank you, Sunil ji, and thank you, Sanjay Sapru ji, for inviting me. Actually, a lot has been said and a lot of this ground has been covered. And I don't think there is a lot for me to say now, particularly after hearing Sanjay Tikku ji. It's very kind of depressing also to hear what's happening on the ground there. But I just want to mention that we need to look at a bigger picture. As Raj Kachru-ji said, it's quite a complex matter. Just to return and rehabilitate people, our community who have left the valley 32 years ago. And quite a lot has happened in these 32 years. We have seen change of governments. We have seen Articles 370 and 35A being revoked. A lot of things have happened, which has made this whole conflict of Kashmir a complex one. It's not just taking people just standing there in the queue and let's see if we can get some land, let's see if we can rehabilitate our community. There are so many issues. We have to look at a bigger picture as well. Some of our speakers, panelists have already said, it's not just our going there and settling. First of all, we have to look at our right to settle in our homeland. Whether we want to go there or not, that's a different issue. That's a different matter. So that's very important for us. Now, the packages that have been offered by Manmohan Singh, and then later on another employment package was offered, they have been flawed from the very beginning. They are not employment packages or rehabilitation packages which will attract people, which will attract our younger KPs to go and live there. We have to unite together, and we have also got to learn the skills of lobbying governments, our UT government and the central government, with some areas that will really make our younger generation to go and live in the valley. But having said, it's very complex. It's not what we have to look at a bigger picture, which will take a lot of uniting these different organizations, uniting our community together, and then having a roadmap, a plan which covers most of our areas, which doesn't just cover going there and just settling down in a camp or in a township. It has so many issues that we need to look at. The biggest issue we have currently is the security issue. And how are we going to address that? Because it has taken a lot of effort up to now from various people, from various organizations to raise this issue with the UT government and the central government to look, because we have seen the examples. Only in October we had 7 people being killed there. So these are the things really. It's a conflict of a very, very complex nature, and to get people back to live there and to preserve our heritage, to preserve our culture, we need a lot more than what we're doing now. As Sopuri Sahab said, we have to ask this question to ourselves. What do we want? What do we know that there will be a lot of people who would not want to go back, but it's not just going back only, it's the rest of it, is the bigger picture. So really, we have to, this is very complex. It's not going to be easy to address this issue, or to think that, well, we have the BJP government and they will kind of use their magic wand and we'll just go and live there. It's not as simple as that. It has lots of issues, and the big issue we have is also the community. We as a community are not really united. We have so many small, big organizations that have small organizations have mushroomed all over the world now. Globally also, we have now so many organizations dealing with the rehabilitation issue of the Kashmiri Pandits. But we actually do not know what we want. We need to know what we want. We need to really get together. We need to be united, and then we need to lobby. We are the community that have no lobbying skills. We don't know how to lobby the governments for what we want. First of all, we need to know what we want, and then we need to lobby the governments, the UT government, the central government, and then see if our issues can be addressed. As I said, it is a very complex issue. It has taken 32 years. We still haven't made much progress. We have got an issue of the people who are in Jammu, the camps, Jagti townships. They are in apartments. They have been moved from the camps. Our community from the camps have been moved into the apartments, but they're just as bad as the camps. They lack basic amenities, the damp walls, the seeping pipes. There are so many issues that has to be addressed. Our KPs who are living in the valley, as Sanjay ji said, that they are living they have lots of issues. We need to look at them first. There are so many things we need to address, really. It's not just a matter of our return and rehabilitation. It's such a big picture and such a complex picture. Well, a lot has been said by all our learned and eminent panelists. So I really don't think I have a lot more to add, but I do see it a very complex picture, really, that needs to be addressed with some strategies. But these strategies have to be really united strategies, and to address the complex situation we are in. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna ji. We almost come to the end of the session with that, and it's been a very, very fruitful session. So what I would do is I would now request my colleague Sanjay to just sum up the whole discussion and propose a vote of thanks. Sanjay Sapruji, over to you.
Namaskar, everybody. I think if somebody has some questions before, maybe if somebody has some questions, they can come up to raise those questions, and then I'll sum up.
I would like to add one point which probably should catch our attention. There's a lot of talk about restoration of statehood in J&K. I think one point on which we all need to focus upon, the government of India stands committed in Parliament to restore the statehood. Yes, statehood as and when it is granted, but we have to probably ensure that statehood, as and when it is restored, it is restored with some caveats. The home and the revenue should continue with the central government. I've seen there are lots of problems because it is very difficult to manage many times the political dispensation in the state and the expectation from the central government. It's very difficult to marry the two, to reconcile the two. So it is better to have a unified ministry on these two important things. As and when statehood is restored, UT is okay as long as it lasts, is good. But whenever statehood is restored, we should try and focus the attention of the government that the revenue and the home should continue with the central government, as it is in Delhi state. Thank you.
Sanjay, can I add something more to what Sanjay Tikku said? I just want to endorse what he said. I didn't come out, but his feeling is what I have experienced myself since 2019. After the abrogation of 370, the acceptance of Kashmiri Pandit in the valley has reduced. It's a fact. We are seen as a representative of a suppressive power. We are not seen as Kashmiri Pandits who used to be the part of the Kashmiri Pandit community because we celebrated it in a way. We are seen, the government of India or the people, local people see us as a representative of a occupying power, if I put it in the inverted commas. Lots of people see that there is an occupation of a union territory and Delhi is governing this place, and Kashmiri Pandits are associated with the Delhi and we are representing that. We are not the original Aborigines, or we're not the neighbors, or we're not the people who we used to be. So that shift has happened after 2019, and it will take us very long time to, it will take us an effort. We have to make an effort to tell them that we are not representing Delhi, but we are original people of here, what we used to be. So it's an additional effort on top of what we have been doing for so many years. And as long as the television, somebody mentioned about the television, the venom on the televisions continues, it's going to be more and more and more difficult for us to go and settle or relocate or whatever happens.
I said it, sir. I
So
said it.
I'm just saying, as long as that...
I agree 100% with you, sir. Absolutely 100%. We are being treated as an instrument of oppression now. That's absolutely right.
That shift has happened since 2019.
Yes, true, very true. I 100% agree with you. Because I have infection.
We need to work. Our work has doubled. We had some problem. It has magnitude, it has increased. But until such time, I still want to say, until the Kashmiri Pandit community understands what reconciliation is, we might need to take some lessons from Bishop Tutu and Nelson Mandela on that. What reconciliation means, and unless as a whole society we make an effort in reconciliation, it's useless for us. We can be going there and with 4 army people in a security, it doesn't attract me. If I want to work in Kashmir, I want to enter into any home and be accepted. Otherwise, I'm fine in Switzerland. That's what I mean to say.
I couldn't agree more.
Can I make a comment?
Right, sir.
Sanjay, can I make a comment?
Yeah, please, Sazawalji.
I mean, this is too tempting. I mean, that's what Kashmiri Muslims want us to think, and quite frankly, that is an established, that's an established peacenik lobby. What I would say is that, yeah, blame us ourselves. We are not only victims, we're also the oppressors ourselves. I mean, that is not borne by the 3 decades in which they have never owned up to the fact that Kashmiri Pandits are out of town. But let me make an interesting observation. What part of my effort has been, I've been involved with Valley for the last almost more than 2 decades, and I keep a very close tab with the journalists. And the journalists would tell me one of the worst periods that we had in Kashmir is when the Kashmiri Muslim has this feeling that at the end of the day, Pakistan will have a major role, and Pakistan will actually influence some of the decisions, as a result of which most of the people among Kashmiri Muslims who are neutral tend to be, by their voices expressively, supporting anti-national modem, because that would keep their security high, because they thought there would be accountability if Pakistan has a role in Kashmir. In fact, many of them told me the worst time was when Vajpayee was the Prime Minister of India, because he really gave them the feeling that the solution of the Kashmir will involve Pakistan to a large degree. He said the situation, you should see, after that deteriorated quite a bit, because certainly Muslims who were actually either neutral or pro-sympathetic to India wouldn't want to be part of that lobby, because they wanted to identify themselves as being sort of, so that the Pakistani influence later on, that accountability would not be a factor. Now, very interestingly, if you noticed, after the 5th August, immediately there was a total vacuum. And I'm in touch with these journalists. But I was in Srinagar 3 months later. I am in touch with them there. And at that time, they told me the situation is not only under control because they were able to get good human intelligence, which was primarily military intelligence, to pick up the right people. But the fact of the matter is, they really genuinely feel right now, if all of these guys at the top, Abdullah, Muftis and all that, if they are put behind bars, then people have a chance to flower and do other things, and maybe there will be development, there will be better relations with the Kashmiri Pandits and so on and so forth. And by the same token, they also told me the day they release them, and we realized that Indian government hasn't had the will to keep them under bars and to take them, because all of them felt there can be legal cases against them. They have done immense loss to the exchequer. They are corrupt to their bones, and if they want, they can keep them behind bars forever. But they also told me, the moment they leave, things will go to hell here, because certainly they will realize BJP does not have that strength, capacity to at the end of the day to do the things that they need to do in the state, which has for 70 years been ruled wrongly. So we are looking now at a
let's not get into the politics of it. I'm just
no, because that's integral to what you're saying.
No, it's a debate.
You're making me feel that I have to apologize to Kashmiri Muslims for what they did to us from 89-90. It's much more complex than that.
I didn't say that.
No, your words are tuned to the same thing. The point is, yes, we need a reconciliation.
Reconciliation is a very, very
useful thing.
At a point,
on the basis that you cannot say Governor Jagmohan was responsible and get away with it. You have to recognize the fact that, yes, I don't deny, I'm not a BJP supporter for that matter of fact. Let me tell you that right off the bat. I have never supported BJP. I'm not a BJP supporter. I'm a supporter for Kashmiri Pandit cause. And I feel very much the fact that we have community in Kashmir right now of Kashmiri Pandits who get zero support from the local government. So I'm government. But I will also say, all the chips are not in this thing that Muslims have to first, it's a dialogue that Muslims have to start from themselves. Do they want Kashmiri Pandits back or not? This is the dialogue that I have with them all the time. And they are themselves saying, we're not sure. We don't know whether we want you back. Because, you used to take jobs, you used to take this, you used to do that, you used to get preference, you are smarter, your boys and girls are smarter. I mean, they give you all kinds of reasons why they don't really want you back. So the point of my point is, as Krishnaji said, it's a very complex situation. But let's not go with the idea because BJP government has come on the throne, that is an excuse for them to say, oh, now we are singling you out because you are the ones who should be doing concessions. No, 30 years, there was no BJP, there was no Article 370 removal. What did they do in that period? So that has to be accountability also. Thank you.
It's a debate for some other day. We can discuss this and debate.
Let me add a point, Sunilji, to what Mr. Vijay Sazaul has said and Mr. Kashfu has mentioned. Reconciliation is an important point for coexistence, but is the time opportune for that? Let me put it in one sentence. Mr. Bindru and we have Mr. Sanjay Tuku, they have been outstanding examples for any sort of reconciliation. Sanjay is living under total security. He has tremendous threat, I know. And you know what Bindru got out of it. This is not the time where reconciliation is going to work. Yes, let the peace return, let terrorism finish. Then, of course, reconciliation can assume an important role.
Sunil, I'll take a minute.
Right now, any reconciliation is it's becoming meaningless. You can't reach anywhere.
I'll take a minute, sir.
Okay, Bansa, please go ahead.
Sir, when Sunil and Sanjay wanted to have this program, they consulted me. After having consulted me, I gave only one suggestion. I said, choose the most eminent panel from across the globe within our own community. And after shortlisting, I was really happy that the illustrious people, very informed people, knowledgeable people, experienced people have been put on the list. It was a delight for me to be the first speaker and listen to all other speakers. Sir, the discussion and the interventions of all of you have been so interesting that it calls for a regular debate, according to me, regular interactions, so that we provide a better and a new thought process and a new narrative for our community to move forward and enlist some of the younger opinions. We have heard Sanjay Tikku. I have been interacting with him from way back in, I think, 91. He was a small boy, as he said rightly. And I was calling him to the guest house where he would very hesitantly come, but I would insist on coming him to me to brief me. So from 91 onwards, I have been regular. Khoda Sahab also knows how regular I have been, and I have interacted from all, let me say, from all the panelists present. I am the only political person in this panel. So I have a different understanding, and that understanding, let me spell out, is that in today's context, the waning militancy is being revived by Pakistan again through deadly youngsters. That is okay. And security forces is taking care of that. But at the political level and at the sociological, psychological level, the community which was in arms against India for its eviction in 90 onwards, today the realism has dawned on that very society that India has come to stay permanently in Kashmir. No power on earth can evict Kashmir, India from Kashmir. Therefore, my only question remains, if this is the changed dynamics on the ground politically, these are what we discussed. It was enlightening to discuss the nitty-gritties. But the principal element in this is that if Kashmir society today appears to be emaciated politically, psychologically, and sociologically, they are in a state of despondency. And they look forward for a reach out to Kashmiri Pandit community to salvage them at certain levels. And as all of you reached a consensus and said that there are some reactionary elements who gave reaction to this changing dynamics. Is that reaction really called for? Or there has to be some sanity within us for not pardoning what has been done to us in past. At least to reach out within each other to thrash out certain issues which can be helpful in retrieving our roots ultimately. Our objective has to be to retrieve our roots, to retrieve our right to live, right to life in our own homeland, no matter whether we go physically or not. But that right is inalienable to us, and we want to enforce that right. And we want this government only one concession to give us, at least to facilitate that, because without their facilitation, we cannot do anything on our own. We don't have that strength, neither the economic strength nor the political strength to do that. We want this government. And as I said earlier, there is a national consensus on this issue. There is a local consensus politically on this issue. Even the civil society has a consensus with us. There is a favorable situation for us, except the aberration of militancy. And that aberration also Government of India is taking care of. And because of recent ceasefire, because of yesterday, Imran Khan announcing his national security policy of 100 years of peace with India, it's yet another situation which favors us. And we, as the informed Kashmiri Pandits, we as the educated Kashmiri Pandits who have no linkages with the respective social platforms as such, do we need to put our heads together, come out with a concrete, some 10-point formula, or say some semblance of some creating a paper, a new narrative for Kashmiri Pandits, for future of Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir? That's only my request. Should we do that? Because I have been encouraging these two youngsters. They are younger than us, and they have a large group of youngsters along with them. And today they did it as an experiment on experiment basis. And we need to encourage them to take it forward. That is my only request to all of you. Should we continue with these efforts, or we will give it a stop here, discuss? Achana kashir pat varan, yeah, so Farsi word kya tha? ये हमारा ये कोर डिस्कशन है ना, निष्ठम बर्खास्तम.
No, it's not that. PA मशवरत मजलिस आरास्तंद. PA मशवरत मजलिस आरास्तंद. निशस्तंद गुफ्तंद बर्खास्तंद.
बर्खास्तम. निशस्तम गुफ्तम बर्खास्तम. गुफ्तगू कर तो कोर बर्खास्त. क्या ये की बर्खास्त कर?
Sir, please translate it.
I think we should continue.
Please translate.
One. Taking it from Ban Sahab, I would like that this set of interaction should be continued further. But one suggestion, with the tributary in my heart, please, you will excuse me. Could it be feasible or possible that we can have one person from Kashmir Muslim Society on board?
Not immediately. Not. Let us first thrash out our own.
I don't mean immediately. I don't mean. But is this suggestion worthwhile? Could this suggestion be considered in future time? That's my one request.
So that would be our reach out. When we arrive at a consensus for a reach out, then it would be a reach out program.
Thanks.
But before we have to draw a consensus of ideas.
Am I allowed to say for 30 seconds something? Only 30 seconds.
Yes, Rajji, yes.
As long as we see ourselves as neutral to India and Kashmiri Muslim community, we have a chance. But if
we can't see ourselves neutral to India, you know.
I'm just, let me make my point. If
we can be neutral to BJP, not to India.
Yes, absolutely. You can't be neutral to India.
Let me, maybe I put see the current government of India.
Do we certify that Kashmiri Muslims are not Indians? That word.
I didn't pull this thing apart. I mean, government of India today as it stands.
Yes.
As it stands, the government of India, if we align ourselves to government of India, we have an uphill task in Kashmir. If we can convince the Kashmiri, look, this is government of Jammu, people of Jammu and Kashmir, people of Kashmir rather than Jammu and Kashmir, people of Kashmir, government of India, and we are a Kashmiri Pandit community, neutral to this, and we are here on our own. Our job is easy.
We'll do that, sir.
As long as we align ourselves to the government of India.
What is your concept of neutrality? Let's understand that.
That's the next. We can have next debate on that.
Leave it to next
time.
I just want to mention one thing. Am I allowed to say something?
Yeah, sure, Krishna.
I just want to mention that we are promoting the Kashmir Files movie here in the UK, and we're hoping to have the team Vivek Agnihotri and Palvi Joshi here in March.
That's fine. That's fine. Yes, that's fine. As long as the cause is being advocated by any platform, we are with it. There is no problem.
So am I allowed to?
Yes, Sanjay.
Sanjay, please carry on.
Okay. Namaskar to all. I think we have overshoot by 15 minutes, and in a Kashmiri meeting, overshooting by 15 minutes is not so bad.
Your video is not visible.
Let me see. I don't know what happened. So our shooting by 15 minutes is not so bad. So I would like to thank all the speakers here for their time, and on behalf of Kashmir Pe Charcha group. So Kashmir Pe, we had actually formed this Kashmir Pe Charcha group couple of months back. It used to be, it is an informal group within Gurgaon, where we used to discuss debate with other people, like even Ashok Ji was in one of the debates as well there. So we will continue to do such debates, as everybody agreed to that. We'll continue to do such debates in future. Concluding in a situation like this, where we all are talking more or less same, I would like to conclude in one line. What I could make out of this, the only way forward for reversal of exile of Kashmiri Pandit community with consensus is to impress with full intent on the government to address the issue seriously and work on the full-fledged defined return approach, rather than, I'm not saying return and rehabilitation, return approach, and to build consensus within the larger Kashmiri Pandit community and large civil society of Kashmir. I think this is where I would like to conclude the debate, while Sanjay Ji was of a different opinion. But in view of the majority, I would like to conclude here. But at the same time, I would like to add one more point, which most of the people have did not talk about. I was thinking people will talk about it, is the current government is talking about large-scale investments within Kashmir or within Jammu and Kashmir. And I feel as a stakeholder of Kashmir, we have to promote and be a part of this investment in terms of whatever way. If we are able to be a part of that in terms of joining the enterprises which are getting created in Jammu and Kashmir, I think we should encourage that. So if we, or if we want to invest something as a part of that investment plan, we should do that. But being absent from that investment plan, which Modi ji is driving, I think it will be a big loss for the community if we do not take part in that investment plan. I feel both these points actually need further debates. We will try to break these points into sub points and run smaller debates, so the smaller focus debates, and move on from here. I once again thank everybody for joining today's event. I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Close the call now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.